So tough years, tough soils. This is the 4th year of a drought for us up where we're at. We're all dry land on our farm. We run quite a few cows, and then we do a diverse cropping rotation. So when I say we're in a drought, I know that I'm in an environment that's drier than me. So I do understand and respect that. My thing is, with our family and where we're at, we can't control when we get the rain. So like if you looked it up for us this year, we would have got like 18.5 inches. We usually get 22 to 24. But we got a bunch in May, and then we got almost nothing till August. We got one rain in August, and we got almost nothing until 2 weeks ago. So we have very long times of dry weather, and we have to be able to hold that soil battery as long as we can to grow as much as we can. So there it is. How we got here? So my background, like I was saying, dry land, cows, farming. We were more of a conventional farm, tillage, a little bit of no-till, running that system. I went to Fort Hays State University in Kansas, the Harvard of the High Plains. And so I got an agronomy degree, came home. Still, I wasn't anti-no-till, but I didn't feel that would work in our system. And then got to take over some sandy ground. And I'm talking under 1% organic matter. Like the pictures he had earlier, where he said, looks like the moon. That's what this felt like. And those pictures, you can have low organic soil, but you have to have structure. And if you don't have structure, you can't hold water and you can't take water in. So the sand we took over was that way. And so no-till was the only option. And then in that first year, I credit my dad with it, but we tripped and stumbled and fell our way into cover crops, backwards, not intending it. We were growing feed for cows. We would leave regrowth because we were scared of the sand blowing. And then all of a sudden at the regrowth, we were getting a great yield bump. So we thought we were being fertilizer efficient. Well, a couple podcasts and a soil health meeting later, I realized it's biology. That's what's been driving us. And so once we tripped and fell face planted into the biology camp with cover crops, we've never left. And so how we got here is, this is 2018. So we've done cover crops for 2 years now, kind of intentionally, kind of accidentally. First major intentional cover crop in our system. Okay, we planted this behind it wasn't failed, 25 bushel wheat, so it's pretty pathetic. July 4th, 2018, we got this multi-species cover crop planted. Great diversity, a lot of legumes underneath, a lot of grasses. You can see the sun hemps and all. There's a lot of species there. Okay, so young gun, planted cover crop. Everybody in our neighborhood thinks I'm nuts. It's right on the highway. One of those deals. Looks great. It's green, but we haven't got any rain from like the 7th of July on. So 16th August, this was the last time I took good pictures, but it was starting to hurt. It was curling up underneath, burning the bottom leaves. We were running out of gas. And see, in our country, when you cut wheat off, all the old timers, and I'm not picking on old timers, we got here because of them, but they all either spray their wheat stubble or they work their wheat stubble and they fallow it. So they don't plant anything through the winter, and then in the spring they'll plant again, and they'll tell themselves that they saved all that water from when they cut the wheat till they planted the next crop. That's their fallow period. But that's a dead period. No biology, and our evaporation is extremely high. So you're losing water the whole time too. So we've used up every ounce of water the soil had, and August 24th is, I think, the night. Buddy got married, drove to his wedding there 35 minutes west of us, and we got pounded while we were there. A thunderstorm came through, just pounded. And we got, like the 24th, it's the 24th to 25th August, we got 3 inches hard. Came fast, just pounded us. And we were thankful. We got rain. It's hard for us to get rain in those times. So here's the last time before. Again, back then I wasn't taking crappy pictures because I didn't know I'd ever speak about it later. So this is the best part of the field because I didn't take bad pictures, I only took good pictures. You got to think about that, okay? So the 24th of August, the rain fell. So then the September 1st, we went out to look at the cover again, okay? And that's just a regular sharpshooter shovel. And then that's my brother-in-law, Brian. He's 5'5". He's a littler guy. And, we're like, man, look at this growth. This is awesome. and we're still learning on that curve of what's going on. Our biology's starting to crank. The cover crop is all working together to diversify. I mean, it's just a great thing. Everything, all the buzzwords, you could say it at that field. There's September 8th. So we had a hot week, upper 90s all week. And we were checking it every Sunday afternoon. We'd go look at cover crop, and that guy's 6'5". That's my buddy Andrew Newst. And so we pumped that much carbon in a week. And so people don't understand, but that's how you get ahead. So that soil, over half of that carbon is going down through the roots, glomalin into the soil structure. We're building aggregates. We're pumping carbon down for later, and we're doing the thing. So then it froze out. So that's the cattle pot dumping cows at the end of the field. We ended up smashing down through trying to get fence put in, and that was a learning experience of itself. But we did all that, we grew all that, and that was the first time in my life, in my world, where we did what we needed to do. We planted a cover. The Lord blessed it. We grew with rain. We got great biomass, and then we turned around and planted into that, and our soil was moist. We had cover on top. We didn't evaporate, and we grew a nice bean crop behind that. And so the system cycled. We didn't need much herbicide because we had residue. We didn't have pigweeds like other people did. We did the whole thing, and on either side of me, we have the conventional farming, and so we finally turned the corner, and that's when the light bulb was already on, but it was kind of flickering, bad connection. And then after this, that's full speed the rest of the way. So we've never looked back since. So there's the dot where we live. There it is. So I mean, you guys know we're in a dry climate here. You guys know what that's like. There's thunderstorms around. You just can't get a hold of them, and they slide past you, or they build all the way around you. And we didn't get any rain that night. That's why that picture got saved. So it literally slid up to the northeast and got away from us. And so when we have those times, there's nothing we can do. When we farm in dry land, I look at it as I want to do everything I can do, and water is my limiting factor. And so I want the soil in the best condition we can do. I want to save the water the best we can, and then a rain is my limiting factor. And so this is a big map of evaporation. We'll zoom in on it, but annual average evaporation minus the normal precipitation of our area. Okay, so the number we're going to look at is the evaporation minus the rainfall we get. So that's the number that's left. So in the upper part of the county there, everything I farm is right in here. And I do a little bit, that field that we just looked at was up there by the 29. So we have 29 inches of evaporation after our annual rainfall. And so when we talk about the fallow, my neighbors do, and the older generation did, I understand when we didn't know what we were doing before that. My grandpa, they plowed because they didn't know any different, but we've learned different. And our evaporation is so high that if we don't put that mat of residue and have those cover crops on top to slow our wind down and slow down our evaporation, we're screwed. There's no way around it, because it will evaporate, because it's 30 inches of evaporation. We only get 23, but we've already taken the 23 out of that number. So that's what we fight against. So then this is that same sandy soil that we took over in 2016, under 1% organic matter, no structure. It was like a beach. The drill pulled like a beach. We've got aggregation now. We've got color. It's not white anymore. It's brown. That's coming from the carbon that the cover crops pump. And that's what people don't understand is until you have, the pictures he had of the moon, the moon of the soil, over time you will put color back in because you're pulling carbon out of the atmosphere and pumping it through the plant back down through the roots. And we will build that. But the other thing that you're doing is you're putting energy in your soil. So your next crop that you grow, like he was saying, 1,000 pounds of cover or carbon, that's completely true. But then the root exudates from the cover crop plants are breaking nutrition down. So then you will have excess nutrition that's available because of the plants, what they did prior. So there's clay. We don't have a lot of clay, but there's no structure there. That's just a chunk, right? We're after aggregation. So these pictures, this is, again, farmer sitting in his pickup messing with a toy. But that's the ridges on my thumb. So I got a lens that pops on into my phone camera, and I can zoom in on soil particles. And so we put on the 100 times zoom, and that's the ridges on my thumb, and then that's a soil particle from one of my sandy fields. So if you guys look, those are pieces of silica. It was basically rock. And so we can't hold water in those pieces. We can just hold water around them. And so if we can grow the cover crops, pump the carbon, and then put the residue on top, we can hold the water in between those particles and keep it there and not evaporate it. That's why our evaporation is so high, is because we're not actually in a clay particle or in a silt particle. We are attached to a sand particle. So when we talk about the aggregation, that's what that is. This would have had the similar color to that pulverized stuff he showed earlier. That was just like talc. But now the roots have pumped down glomalin as root exudates, and we've built particles, microaggregates, that keep our soil stable. But then when we get rain, we can actually flow the water underneath our soil surface and keep it and hold it. And the earthworms, they cycle everything. So this is underneath. So this, you can see the wheat straw, and then there's cover plants on either side. But in the conventional system, that was either tilled or the wheat straw was bare. We've already grown the cover and we froze now. But look how much earthworm activity is happening underneath. We've kept that soil alive through the fall and into the winter. And that biology then will be there ready to go in the spring if we feed it. So when we plant a cash crop or we move forward, we add carbon, however we're going to do the system, we've already increased our biology, so then we have a better starting point. When we plant a seed, we put on other products, we can move further forward because our starting point's not as far back. Floods, bad soil structure, you can't get the water under the surface. Dust blowing. That's actually in the town of Hutchinson, there's a penitentiary, and they have a little bit of farm ground, and they conventionally plowed it. And John Deere is actually on the other side of the road there. And we had a west wind, and just covered all the green equipment with dirt. And the state was out there digging the ditch out and hauling the sand back out onto the field. Watching your tax dollars just move dirt around was a good time. So this is a road that we farm. That green field off to the side. And this is where I'm trying to get you to the aha moment that I've never been able to get past. This road, that's the first field that I took over. That's that 80 in 2016, under 1% organic matter, looked like crap. This picture was taken like the first week or two of August. That's my neighbor. He's already got his wheat stubble worked 3 times. The sand is ready to blow. If you look at that ridge, we had some wind. That ridge got to moving a little bit, blowing into the edge of the road. We cut our wheat the same day. The only difference was I pulled a drill and he pulled a disc. So that cover then got about as tall as me, and it's now froze out. And we have grown biology, we've grown residue, we've stopped evaporation, we've cycled nutrients, we've pumped carbon, and we're ready for next year. And that is ready for a long winter. That's what, we blow, and when we start to blow in our sandy country, you can't stop it. And so that's where I was telling those guys we feel very blessed. In the last 2 weeks we've gotten rain, and it stopped our milo harvest, but it kept our wheat alive. We had wheat starting to die off, and now we have water. And when we have water, we can grow something. So the cover crop basics, it's a tool. So earlier he was talking about everything we're going to talk about today. And I want you guys to think of, I had an old timer that has changed his farm over, explain it to me. But how I look at it now is when we walk up to a field, you got a toolbox in your hand, okay? One of the tools in the box is cover crop. One of those tools is no-till. And I would argue one of those tools is water treatment. He's going to talk about later. One of the tools is carbon. One of the tools is biology. Because all those things we can use on that field to make it successful. But we have to know how to use those tools at the right time to be successful. Tillage is a tool in my operation. I don't use it very often, but if we get a rainstorm and we have cows somewhere, we might have to smooth it up a little. But then we'll probably plant a cover crop behind it to stabilize that soil. So all those tools are in that toolbox. Crop rotation is one of them. we use all those to move forward, and that's where cover crops is for me. It's a tool. I need armor, and I need to slow down evaporation. That's the first thing. I need to cycle nutrients. That's the second thing. I need carbon. That's the third thing. And then anything we can do with the biology to increase it is a win. You know, water infiltration follows all those things. I don't actually focus on water infiltration because if we build armor, we built roots to infiltrate water. So we've already done it. This is some dead triticale rye from this last year. Running the air seeder through it, smashing it down. There's the soybeans coming up through it. You know, those soybeans haven't had a bad day in their life yet. Now there's some coming. they were dang near dead. they made 27 bushels an acre, and I was thankful for it because they didn't look like they were going to make it. But all that matter smashed down. We were able to hold water. We were able to stop the evaporation, and we did no post application of herbicide. So you know, those are all dollars that we've stacked up because of a choice we made the year prior. Coming up to that residue, you know, the wind can't touch it. Everything is protected. The plant's protected, and we grow like that. There's the neighbor. He plants in it too, and he sent me that picture. I thought it was a good one. So the mixes, our goals. So anything behind wheat, we try to adjust and see. Now, I've been informed, I don't understand your guys' soils because I don't live here, but I have acidic soils, you guys have basic soils, is the way I understand it, right? Okay. So stuff we do wouldn't work here, but stuff you guys do wouldn't work in my area. So this is behind wheat stubble. So in my country, I wish that you could not apply for, if you cut wheat and then you're going to plant a spring crop, I wish you could not apply for crop insurance unless you did that. Because there's as many cattle as there's people in Kansas. And we're spraying herbicide and we're doing tillage for the whole fall, winter, spring, whatever. Or we could grow one cover crop, save all the herbicide passes, and feed mama cows. And in our state, that's a big deal. And so through a D4 drought in the last 4 years, we've still been able to have some success. That's not great, but that's still success. I mean, it's 2.5 feet tall. I'm a big guy, so, you know, if you're holding a fish, I have to hold it way out there. This is a summer mix, a lot of different species. That's very normal for us. 5 to 9 species behind wheat in the summertime. We give those plants an option. You know, if we can get them to moisture and get them up, then with the heat, they like it. We can grow in the heat and pump a lot of carbon doing that. Yeah, there's a fall mix, and so there's, you know, the barley, some oats, peas. So we haven't done as much fall mixes as we did before, and that's just because of the way our dry has been. We've been very dry in the fall and winter, and so if we have milo stalks or corn stalks and we don't have the moisture to get the cover up, we haven't disturbed it just because it'll blow all winter if we get it loose. And so our dream is, you know, the rain we got this last 2 weeks, I'm probably going to go out and we're probably going to do some more trit and rye because we now have the moisture to make it get up and get cover. But it's very, we have to pay attention, we have to be careful because you can hurt yourself as much as you help yourself if you get it too loose. Yeah, so there's just this regular summer mix like what we just saw in the guy's hand. And then, I was not driving the drill, that was Dad. The drill didn't kick on. And so this is just I just saw it, I was in the sprayer, and I just snapped a picture quick because it's one of those deals where that cover's not very big, but it's better than nothing. But if you see the wheat stubble there, I mean, it's busted off, and I mean, the drill did drive through it, so that's probably why. But there's not much there. I mean, you think about the next 6.5 months of just bare soil with the wind hitting it and the sun beating down on it and doing nothing. I like this a lot better. And this up here, about $17.25 an acre is what we had in that. So for my dad, that's a big win. You know, we're saving water, we're cycling nutrients, we're pumping carbon, and we're doing it very affordably.
Question.
Yes, sir.
That $17.25, is that including the fuel cost and pass and all that too? Or is
No, that was just seed. So it would be more with the drilling and stuff, yeah. But we look at it on that side. So with that argument, I get that all the time. I've got the guys saying, well, you used all your water, you got nothing for the spring. Or you hear I don't want to spend that much money on cover. That's nuts. But I wave as they pass me with their sprayer, and they spray their wheat stubble 6 times or 5 times to keep it clean, because pigweed, Palmer amaranth, is our nemesis. And if it gets up very tall, it'll put out seeds and seed like crazy. So guys, keep cleaning the wheat stubble up with paraquat. What's that? That's hard on stuff. We did 1 spray pass behind the combine and planted, and then the sprayer is put in the shed. I sprayed for my cousin in August, but I didn't run my sprayer on my acres in July after we finished, because we're just parked, we're done. And so I argue the numbers, you can argue with me the numbers all you want to, but we're not spraying, we're planting. I put this in here just because I want you guys to understand, like, sometimes when you do things, it doesn't feel like much. That's rye behind some beans I did for my cousin, and that looks like crap. I mean, it froze, there's hardly anything there, and you see the sand, like, that looks like it's gonna blow and it's gonna get ugly. But that was a year ago, and this was down on the south end of the farm, and we caught 1 rain down there that we didn't get in the rest of the farm, and we grew biomass. So, it's one of those deals where you have to be careful and you have to be willing to take the chance, because, the Lord will bless you and you'll grow something. This is fall cover. So this is the bread and butter of our rotation, is we try to get this behind wheat all the time. We've seen great in Milo. We've seen a 7 to 9 bushel bump the first year against fallow. But then we also see that bump get bigger to 10 to 12 the next year if we do 2 years of Milo. So the second year, we actually get a bigger kick the second year than we do the first year by doing 1 cover crop. And so I'm struggling to get my dad to be willing to plant more because we've been so dry, but the covers have been great. And you see the turnips and the rape underneath the canopy after it's froze out. So we keep a living root moving a little bit underneath. And the mama cows, when they come through, they think that's just great. I mean, they live for that stuff. So there's our biomass when you're looking straight down with the camera. And so you can't see any soil. We're covered up. And that's in we have not got our normal rainfall for 4 years. So we grew that with almost no subsoil, and whatever we got in that little bit of period is what that is. There's a picture of a cow in here somewhere. There it is. So we like trying to keep the rape and the turnips underneath. It gives us that under canopy, and then when the cows come through, they clean that green top off, and then they smash the rest of the residue. So here's the grazing with the cows. So this is Milo stocks. And so I told you guys earlier that we run cattle. We're about 600 mama cows, and then we background around 1,000, 1,200 head in our small grower yard, and then we finish 700 to 800 in our own finish yard. But we grow a lot of Milo, so 1,000 to 1,200 acres of Milo every year consistently. The mama cows come home in the winter, and then we graze Milo stalks until they go to calve. So we'll put up electric fence, and then we put up polywire, and I move them about every 3 days. So this is 3 days of trampling with a herd of about 100. And so you see that line. And the thing that we've noticed the most is, when we started no-till and I started going to the meetings, cows were bad. They were compacting machines. You had to do strip till after cow comes through. They're not wrong. If you leave the cows there a long time and you use it as a pasture, then you abused it. Then you do need a strip till or do something. We move cows every 3 days. Well, when you see those cows, they've crossed the line over and they're off and, getting some yummies for the day. Well, they won't go back over here because all the good stuff's over here. Why would you want to lay where there's manure and mud, where you could lay over here where there's fresh grazing and they can get up and eat? So by moving them every 3 days, we have a little bit of trailing, but not bad. And they always move to their fresh area. So they're more efficient, and we use less mineral and less protein because, when you walk up to a buffet, what do you guys do? I mean, be honest with me. You get a salad plate first. I mean, that's what you should do. But what do? Do you get some steak? You get, you fill up with a good plateful, right? So when you fence an 80 of Milo stalks and you dump the cows out, what are they going to do? They're going to run out and eat every head the combine missed. So for the first 7 days, 5 days, they're going to be grain fed. The next 2 weeks, they're going to eat leaves. And so then their nutrition peak is going to curve and start to go back down. So their mineral uptake is going to go up, their protein need is going to go up. They're going to eat leaves. Well then, in our country, guys graze too hard, so the last week, they'll have to eat the stalk. And they'll eat you out of mineral, house and home, because they've got to break that nutrition down. Well, by moving them every 3 days they get grain, like they got caked, they get leaves and stalks, so they always are content and they're always moving forward. Well, our soil is also getting fed too. So our manure is evenly distributed and our stalks are smashed down, because you can have all the biology in the soil you want, but if the stalk is sticking up above the ground, the biology can't get to it. But behind the cows, they can eat everything. This is the warm season cover. This would be like from 21, where we actually had growth. I was trying to show you guys like what it would look like if we got any rain at all. And so, big growth. Cows smash it down. They leave really good residue. Cows calve awesome. We've been doing milestocks first, and we graze cover crop last. So like in January, February, we graze that, and the calving is fantastic because they've gotten even nutrition for 60 days. So when they go to calf, they're slicked up. Their hair looks good. Polywire, we hang the reels, move that way. So observations. That when we started doing that, I loved looking at tilled fields. And that's what I grew up doing. I could appreciate a guy who ran a tillage tool the right way and did a good job. That looked good to me. But now the observations have changed, and I like seeing residue, because if I can't see their soil, the sunlight can't either. One of the things we've been doing, and you guys were talking about humates earlier, okay? So air seeder, 2 tanks, soybeans in 1 tank, humate in the other tank. It's an 82% dry humic we've been getting from a supplier. Running that and putting that in the furrow, and so that's what I caught I stuck a bag on the end of an air line and caught that. So we've been coating our seed with a little bit of humic dust and then putting that in the furrow. In our sands, soybeans drop a lot of nitrogen through the roots because they're a legume. Well, that breaks down my soil structure because that's eating the carbon that my soil has to feed the plant. Well, that is a soybean plant that's 9 days old. Look at the root structure. In that cover crop, it's very healthy, biology stimulated, but there is a chunk of dry humic right there. And there is roots growing all the way around it, like it's holding it. And so that tells me that those soybeans are needing carbon. And in our sands, we have low organic matter. So unless we raise our organic matter, we can't ever change that. But by using a little bit of humate, I have been able to help change that. So this is a field of mung beans that I grew for Star this year. So the soybeans that was in that last picture, we was planting that, and then we planted the mung beans the same way with the humate in the furrow. That's behind rye, not much rye. We didn't get much growth, so it's very little. So there's a soybean plant. I didn't get a very good picture, but it's very short, and that's what we do because we're dry and hot, and there's lots of pods loaded on the main stem. The nodes are very close together. And so we get the nodes closer together, the healthier we get it. So if you have a field, a neighbor grows a field of beans next to me and I did cover crop, my nodes are always tighter because there's more nutrition available. There's a balanced diet for that plant to utilize as it's growing. The mung beans, I didn't know what I was looking at. And Trent, he's the head of Star there, so I would send him pictures and stuff because I didn't know what I was looking at. But they looked good, they looked healthy. But the soybeans, I knew what I was looking at on the stems. Both of these fields got the carbon treatment, okay? There's the mung beans dried down, ready to harvest. There's a sample we cut with the combine. Now, we've been harvesting. We're not done harvesting milo yet, so I haven't pulled everything off the machines and run it through a computer program. So when I was throwing these slides together, I just took my Snapchat that I sent to a couple guys that I was fired up about. So it's hard to see here, but there's a tree, like an old building site right here. So off the building side, I shut the carbon off on the air seeder. And so right here off the edge of this side, I shut the carbon off and planted this chunk, just soybeans, no carbon, into cover crop. And then the rest of the field had carbon and cover crop. So there was a noticeable yield difference there. I haven't taken it and zoned it in the computer to know exactly what those zones difference were. We were seeing 3 to 5 on the combine monitor, But this field made 27. We were very dry. So, 5 bushel at 27, that's 25% difference, no, it'd be 20% difference. So we saw a 20% increase by using carbon and stabilizing with carbon. So one of the things that I really get fired up about, because they tell us 3, 14, 21, you should be able to run anhydrous. If your soil temp's under 50 degrees, run anhydrous, baby. Strip till, get it on there, get the gas on. There's a lot of anhydrous run in Kansas. You'd kill all that. All your earthworms would be dead. Because, the soil's 50 degrees, it's cold, it's dormant. Well, our biology and our system is not dormant when we're cold. Yes, the earthworms move down a little bit, but our cover crops and everything, we keep that temperature up higher and we stay active way longer. If you ran a knife machine through there, you'd kill everything. This is an observation. This is from a buddy. And it's one of those things that I stare at a long time, because you've got great looking wheat on either side. And those are seed wheat fields. Well, they screwed up with their GPS. It should have been closer, so it wouldn't have been that big of a drastic difference. But there is a ton of pigweed down the center. And then there is a gap next to the plants on either side. So that wheat was either shading or using the nutrition or just wasn't letting, pigweed does not like competition. So where it didn't have competition, it did awesome. Where it was close to the wheat, it didn't succeed at all. And, how many fields do we have bare? And then we plant. So when we plant and our soils are completely bare, there's no competition. In our area, pigweeds are going to flourish. You're going to have to post-apply applications of herbicide to clean it up. But when we plant on fields that have a matter residue behind our cows, there is competition. There's shade. There's all that stuff. So it doesn't just run away from a guy. So things that didn't work well, and there's always a learning curve, right? So that is a grain mite. There's 2 of them. And so we've learned that if you're not going to get rain for 90 days in the spring, and you had cover crop residue and your wheat is nestled down in there, you're going to get mites. Because we've never gotten a rain to reset the system. So the last few springs, we've had extremely dry periods for when we're calving cows and growing wheat. And we've had mite issues in those areas. But the guys that don't do covers and just do no-till into wheat straw, they've also had the mites. So it's been kind of a regional thing. That's a kangaroo rat. And we call them sand rats up our country, but they're tough. So like if you don't graze your cows and you're running covers so you always have residue out there, they can build colonies on the hills, your sandy hills, and there'll be hundreds of holes, and there'll be like a third of a crop there, and they'll have a little colony, and they'll drop your yield. But if you graze mama cows and you move that split fence, it's a reckoning day for those little boogers, because 100 big old beef cows come up there and they stomp those 2 acres you gave them, and they will obliterate those colonies and move those rats, either kill them or move them out. And so, we don't always have to use poison. You can actually use animals and just move the fence and get it done. But those have been tough. Until we figured the cow deal out, we thought, well, this might not work. Because anhydrous does kill those, and that's what, like, my neighbors don't have them because they run gas. Biologicals. So biologicals they're necessary in our system with our herbicide and fertilizer and everything we do. It's just, when you're doing cover crops and everybody thinks you're nuts, and then you're doing biologicals with your fertilizer and programs, then everybody's like, so how much yield bump do you get? Do you get a yield bump? What yield bump do you get? And we're a high stress environment through our summertime. And so I don't get a yield bump, but I don't lose the yield. So like when we stick a corn seed in the ground, I'm hoping it hits 100. But then every stress event we have, we just come down. Our yield just slowly goes down. Well, if we can get the plant healthier to where it can handle stress, we dug these when it was 100 out. When you can handle stress, then our yield won't drop as fast as we go through the growing season. And so I don't think biologicals gain me yield. I think they save me yield with a healthier plant. So this is corn off that same field we did the trials with. So this plant over here, just chemical co-op fertilizer, nothing. This one has carbon balancing the fertilizer, and then we ran some biological stimulant in the furrow as a starter. So on the corn deal, we saw like a 9 bushel difference. But the craziest part is we have the feedlot, so we feed all our grain we grow, and we saw a 1.5% difference on our corn protein. And so we were feeding dryland corn at that time, and Dad was having trouble getting the diets to balance in the fat cattle. And we couldn't figure out what the problem was. And when we tested our corn, we were feeding like 8.5% corn protein. And so we had to adjust and get our diets balanced because we were able to put more in the grain. There's wheat. This would be from the fall of 21. We actually got growth before the end of the year. So the last few years, Trent and I were talking about that driving here. Like, you know, we get to December the last couple of years and our wheat's like this big, and you can see a green line out there, and you're like, man, I hope it lives. And so this is back when it actually tillered up before the end of the year, and the root growth was pretty drastic. And that's just doing some stuff on the seed. And so I give you all this to say that I'm not here to sell biologicals, but I know that biologicals are important in our system for a healthy plant. That changes our nutritional uptake. That changes how well the plant handles stress. And so, you know, we use them. We like them. We love carbon. We use carbon with all of our nitrogen we apply. We tried that 5 years ago, and we've never looked back. So every time we run any nitrogen product, we have balanced it with like 12% liquid humic to make sure that it is balanced and stable when we run it. Different ideas. So this guy has a 15-inch planter. And so we bent the old brain a little bit, and we built some little boxes for his 1 row. So these are radishes. That's 40,000 population radish. And then over here we've got like some millets, some sunflowers, and some cowpeas, just like a standard light cover crop blend. And so he planted the radishes on 30s, and then we planted the cover in between on the 15s. So there it is before it froze, which when you look at that, you think, okay, that's not too bad. This is after it froze. So the cover in the middle melted down. But then all the radishes, it hadn't froze hard enough to finish killing the radishes, but they're all right there and they're nice. So we've been calling this BioTill because his precision planting planter was able to singulate radishes. So he's been coming in and just offsetting his GPS about 3 inches and planting corn next to the radishes. And the roots can go straight down through the soil, and he didn't blow through the winter, and he was able to keep cover on top of the soil surface, and he has it perfectly ready to plant corn into, or milo, whichever. He does a lot of corn early, but he has saved some of this late for milo and loves it. This is a feed mix on our farm. So we graze a lot of mama cows. So we graze as much as we possibly can, but we do feed when we calve. We feed in our feedlot, and then if the weather gets nasty, we will bring in a bale pickup and we'll feed to keep the cows going while we're under snow or whatever. So we've been increasing our population. So this is some of Star Sedans, some of their millet, sunflowers, and cowpeas. 3 or 4 species basically. And by doing this, yes, we're removing the carbon because we're cutting the hay. But by having the diversity of the root structure, we're seeing our soils actually not go backwards. We're actually seeing our soils ready for next year's crop because we had the diversity in the root structure when we grew this crop. So we like it because we feel like hay is a necessary evil, but we don't hurt our soils as much as we used to. And then that's an old Steiger smashing down cover. So this was in my younger years, back before I was as gung-ho on the cow side. And so we smashed that flat with a stock chopper. And so when I tell you guys that you got to have armor, that was how much armor we put down. And this was just one time. And, you know, looking back, it was foolish because I could have made a lot of money on cows there. But I was young and dumb. So, you know, now we'd throw a fence around there and hammer down. But in the middle of the night, after cutting beans during the day, went out and smashed a field. And my neighbors probably think I'm a little crazy. But now there's more covers in our country than there ever has been. Because through the dry, guys have been able to grow cover in the periods between cash crops and not hurt themselves. And that's what we've learned is in our varying environments, we can help our soils in between and not go backwards. And so I know you guys' growing season is different than mine, but we protect our soil and it responds. And I think if you guys can move into these ideas, I think you'll like it too. And I know it'll be different, but all soil is the same. It's just in different areas. So
The same thing.
that's all I got. And remember, I'm a farmer, not a speaker. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask them, and we can talk about whatever you want to talk about. So, yes, sir.
You just sort of answered the question, like, okay, the cow smashed down the cover crop. It's like, what if you don't have cows? How do you smash it?
Yeah, I mean, you can smash it with a roller. Yeah, there's a lot of ways you can. A lot of times, so if you have cover and I don't smash it through the winter, when you come in the spring to plant, if you have the wide tires on the air seeder, we'll smash most of it. And then if we have a hard winter, like we get an ice storm or a snowstorm and wind, a lot of times that'll break it over as well. And you'll get most of it broke down where it's only a foot to a foot and a half tall, because you know our weather can get pretty drastic at times when it wants to.
Austin,
Yo.
I know we're not really in grazing country here, but
Yep.
it is a big piece of what you guys do. Obviously, we're talking about soil biology and we use the word sustainability a lot, but we really can't be sustainable without being profitable at the same time.
Right.
In a real brief deal, walk us through what grazing covers has meant to you guys from a profitability standpoint.
Right. So, you know, grazing covers and grazing milo stocks, I'm going to put those together, okay? Because milo is very water efficient. So in our country, we can grow it and have a pretty good crop, and the residue is very nutritional for a cow. We will not lose body condition grazing milo. So those two things together. What's the depreciation on a swather per hour? You know, up in our country, if you're going to windrow all that and bale it, you know, you're going to spend $15 to $18 an acre to windrow it. You're going to spend $2 to $3 to rake it. You're going to spend $13 to $14 a bale to put it in a round bale, and then you'll haul it. And so, you know, usually hauling's free, but you've got all that dollars wrapped up in that time. Our family, we built a lot of electric fence. And so, you know, there's been winters where we've built 51 to 52 miles of electric fence. And so we'll graze, if we get wheat growth, we haven't had wheat growth, this is the 5th year now. We're hoping to, but we haven't grazed wheat for a while because we've been so dry. But grazing covers and grazing milo stocks, you know, building fence takes time, it takes manpower. But, you know, you can pay a guy a lot of money an acre when you didn't have any of the cost that we just talked about before. Now, the cover crop side, the grazing, you know, those cows, they're more efficient, their needs are less. We're not hauling manure out of our feedlot pens because the cows are out on cover, on farm ground. So we're cycling nutrients. The cows, we're not hauling manure, we're not hauling hay, we're not feeding. We do haul some water, but when you look at like a herd of 100, you know, like 100 mama cows, they're going to drink about 1,300 gallons a day. So we set 2 big tanks that can hold about that much. And so our truck will hit them once a day usually and give them water. We'll run a water truck through the winter. Again, that costs money, but when you look at what feeding hay and the equipment, depreciation on equipment to feed hay and to make hay, it saves us a ton of money. And then the other thing on the cover crop side, when we've done the covers, like I talked earlier, we're not depreciating our sprayer either. It's in the shed. We're not running paraquat. You know, I'd love to see a study on paraquat use in the last 10 years. You know, there's got to be, I don't know what'll happen, but you know, the chemical usage on those guys doing clean fallow, there's a lot of chemical used. And we've done it. We used to do it. We were just as guilty as everybody else. But we found that not doing that in planting, we're saving money. And we're saving money on everything we do. And all those things add up and bring the profitability back, like Trent's talking, to where then, you know, we're making money on the cattle, but we've also got those acres ready to plant in, and we didn't spend a ton of money to do it.
Well, you're not killing your biology with the herbicide.
Right. So Lance Gunderson at Region Ag Labs there in Nebraska, he came down and spoke in our area, and we've talked about that. And he had a term for it, and I'm a farmer, not a speaker, but there's a term where he talks about the biology level in the soil when soil warms up and goes into your growing season. And he said every time that you can do soil health practices, you move that level up. And so then he said you start from a higher point. So then as you add biology in your system and your system takes off, your plant gets healthier and takes more stress because it started at a higher point. And so he had a graph, and I don't have the graph because I'm a farmer, not a speaker. But he had that graph, and so that's what we've noticed is like we can start out now behind those, and we can plant with not much starter available to that plant because we have a balanced system. Our biology is functioning. And then we try to add nutrition later, or we add it with the planter, but we stabilize it with carbon to where our biology is not affected, and we just keep moving the needle up. And that's even through the dry environment.
So in talking about grazing cows, you're never grazing everything that's there.
No, absolutely not.
Always leave something.
So my dad is in charge of the crop side of the farm, where I've cut my teeth on working on stuff. My uncle is in charge of the cattle, and he is a true cowboy. And there is a butting of heads there. And in our country, in central Kansas, there's a lot of cows, a lot of mama cows, a lot of grazing is done, but there's a lot of guys that kick them on an idiot stalks and leave them there for 2 months. So then once the stalks are gone, they feed there. And so that's where I'm talking about. Then tillage is still there because it's a concrete basketball. It's hard as a rock. And we don't leave them. We want to move. Because, when you look at your yard and your backyard of your house, if you walk across the same path for 30 days, you'll have a path. But if you walk a different path every day for 30 days, your grass will respond, right? And so when we move those cows every 3 days, they're not moving the same area all the time. We can't always move the water, we try to, but if we can limit that compaction to where they move every 3 days, then when they leave the system, the soil it's like a sponge, it relaxes and moves back to normal. We don't fight the cow paths. And then when our planter pulls in, my dad, he said, ever since we've done that, he just grins. And he's like, I pull into plant, and he said, you look at the grazing and the traction, you're like, oh, this is going to be rough. And he said, it's really not. The planter just rides because we never pounded one area so hard it became concrete. And so it's a little more work, but then it saves us on the back end.
So what you're saying is you're taking $7 and getting 20 back is your ROI, so to speak.
Right.
I'm just picking numbers. I don't know what it is, but you're actually getting money back out of it. Your ROI is worth it.
Right. So there's that, I have trouble putting numbers to everything because I don't know what the rain's going to do. Like, there's been years where the cover never got above my knees, and we can graze cows there for like, one animal unit for every 2 acres, and we don't get much grazing. There's been years where it's taller than me, and we can bring cows in there and we can graze, you can put 50 cows every 2 acres, so you can get 40 to 50 days on an 8. And so it changes, but we always want to make sure we leave what we can, so we're always moving. But in those numbers, beef cattle prices are high, so the grazing has been making us money before we plant the cash crop, and that's what's made us more drought tolerant. Yep.
Me?
Well, there's 2 of you, so you arm wrestle for it. I think he'll get you.
So if a farmer is going to transition from the tillage to doing the grazing,
Yes.
is he guaranteed to take an income cut as he gets the thing established? You talk about your light bulb turning on and flickering, and then after a while the light bulb came on, and that's when you were in.
Yep.
But is there always an income lag after you see the picture and you start going? Is there always income lag, or is there a way to transition and see profits increase from day one?
I would tell you that it depends how degraded the soil is out of the gate. And so like if like in our country, there's been fields that I've taken over that have been conventionally farmed, but they hardly ever use synthetics, whether that's fungicide, herbicide, all that. And so those soils respond to this because they're still alive. They just don't have the carbon or structure. Now, if I take over a field from a good no-till farmer that sprayed everything, it does not take off. And so I would argue that a little bit, and then I would tell you that when I adopted the cover crops, I was trying to not do the cows because they were bad. I came from a livestock farm where we grazed way too hard and we stomped stuff. And so we own a strip tiller in the back of the shed from our bad years back when we would, graze stalks hard like everybody else did, and then we'd have to go do something because it's too hard to plant. And so cattle would have helped me transition better. And once I learned more, I brought them in because we had them around. I could use them if I wanted to. And so the grazing thing helps with the transition on the dollar wise, but the growing the biomass to make that armor to slow down the evaporation will make you money in my country, because we will evaporate it. You will lose your water, and you'll, you know, when I showed those beans, they made 27, right? Either side of me, where they did tillage, you know, the conventional way of farming, they did not harvest. And so that biomass saved me all that water. And, you know, that doesn't happen every year, but it happens a lot. And so, you know, when the old timers made fun of me for a while, they started asking questions when my beans weren't dead. And, you know, there was a Friday last year that driving home from work, driving down the highway, and I have 3 fields I drive past, and I didn't want to drive home because it was a Friday evening and we'd been dry so long, and everything finally died. And that was the day. But my field lived like 13 days longer than the neighbors, you know, and it looked tough, and the beans but they were still alive. They hadn't died. And that Friday night driving home, they died. It was like 103 that day with the wind, and that was all they wrote. But we gained 13 days, you know, and so that's what, in our environment where we can't plan our rain, but we know we'll get some eventually. If I can have that battery last me that much longer, you'll make money. And so the first year you might not see 13 days, you might see 3 or 4. But then the next year it will increase. And with the cost of chemical lately, you know, I think if a guy was going to doing any kind of a fallow period in our country, you will make money switching to this system just by savings on chemical. But it'll take your biology a little while to get your soil working to make you more money. But I don't think you'll take that big of a hit, especially if you're careful.
5-year average.
Yeah, 5-year average. Yeah, I mean, I would say in our country, the sandy soil does help get oxygen in there to feed the biology, because biology needs oxygen, and so we do probably see faster response than some people, because, you know, when we grow covers and we let that soil work, we can oxygenate and keep that system cycling. But yeah, I can fall down a lot of rabbit holes. So I love soil. Yes, sir.
So how has your weed pressure shifted in these fields where you're covering? Have you observed that? I mean, you saw in the side ditch there's palmer growing in your neighbor's side ditch, and we've seen this often.
Yes.
But it won't grow, I'm guessing, where you've got a good stand.
So this is a good one. So I got married last summer, July 15th. We have never harvested wheat past the 4th of July on our farm. We did not start till June 26th last year. We started later than we ever have, because our wheat was so close to dead that the first week of May, we didn't think we'd pull a combine out of the shed. We were dead. And then it started raining, and the wheat came back alive, and it was late. We started cutting it late. Well, then, you know, it rained. We would catch a rain every 3 or 4 days, and we were trying to plant, and we kept getting pushed back. And I keep looking at the calendar, and I got a wedding in 15 days. And so I got done planting soybeans and everything, and I talked to my star guy, and Tim is my guy, and he had me cranked up, and we had stuff in the shed, and so I loaded the air seeder, and so between loads of wheat, I'd go seed, because I wanted to cover some fields so we'd have grazing for the winter, because I knew after the 15th my life was going to change. So 70-acre field of sand, pretty sandy, pretty hilly. I was about halfway across, and a freak thunderstorm popped up off into the side, and we got pounded. And I had the air seeder sitting at the end of the field, and we got an 1.70 inch on it hard. And I hate planting before rain, because the rain will usually germinate pigweeds. But I already drilled about half the field on an angle, so I finished the field, and there's a lot of pigweeds out there, especially on the headlands. It was kind of ugly, and I was getting married. I didn't care, so I just didn't look. And it drove my dad. It probably gave my dad a rash looking at that many pigweeds on the headlands and through, because you could see the angle. You could see where I had seeded before. Weeds were worse. And so this last year we grew soybeans there, and we had, you know, the cover got about 2.5, 3 foot tall, and we didn't graze it because it didn't get that good, and then had all the pigweed pressure, and I didn't want the cows to move the pigweeds, so I was like, well, just leave it, you know, we'll see what happens. And we post-sprayed that field of beans once. And so I can't explain to you fully. There's guys tell me the fungal component raising in your soils helps stop the pigweed germination. The residue I know helped. You know, there's a lot of reasons why, but I did not fight pigweeds in the beans this year. And I was scared actually planting that deal, because you can see the pigweeds. But whenever we start the cover crop cycle, and we've been at 2 to 3 years, on my farming list, herbicide is not an issue. I know we might have to go out and post. We're gonna run one light pre, but it's not a problem for us because of whatever we've done to the biology in the soil. So, and I don't know the answer, but I know the answer. Yeah, I've read that. So, yeah, I guess probably about done, right?